Yeah, like I told you, I finally got to watch Opal White like 3 weeks ago, and
Great, man.
yeah, how did you come up with the idea for that?
Uh, it's funny. I was actually thinking about that recently. I didn't have to do a lot of work for Opal White. The phone calls in the film. For
Yeah,
those who haven't seen it, this guy starts getting phone calls looking for the family of a dying woman named Opal White, but it's not him.
right.
And I got those calls
Oh,
for
wow.
about 6 weeks. I kept getting, I mean, like the phone calls happened exactly the way it happened in the film.
Mm,
I was just getting these random calls from some convalescence facility, I think, where this elderly woman named Opal White, that was her name, was dying. And she was trying to reach out to her family before she passed. And and then they called me about every day for a little, well, no, not every day, every few days for a little while. And then I was like, I'm like, can I help you guys find this woman's family?
mm,
Of course, they said no, and that was it. At one day the calls stopped, and I noticed that they had stopped. So I was like, wow, I wonder what happened to her. And right when I wonder what happened to her was when the story kind of up in my head.
okay.
So that was it.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
those calls really.
yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess
Hmm?
the that's really interesting that that's based off a actual event because I wouldn't have expected that.
Thanks. Yeah, I didn't expect it either. Wi-Fi here a little bit, but
Right.
okay. So I missed what you were saying. What was that?
Oh, and then I was just gonna ask how you came up with the idea for the diner scene and kind of going back in time, or like yeah, the ending of the movie, I guess.
I don't really know. I don't really remember how I came up with that. Trying to think. Um, I guess just when I was working, it just kind of came as a natural progression. Like my thought being like, what is the story here
Hmm.
of this guy? Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I know that the place that we shot it at, which was a little ways away from here, the director, the co-director, and I decided that we wanted to do something a little period piece sort of thing at the end. I think maybe that was how it happened because we're like, hey, we've got this great location, and we knew this one actor, the older guy in there, Bill Flynn, and we were like, let's put Bill in it, and let's see if we can write an ending that's got a little period feel to it.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
Yeah, because uh, before I started watching it, and even at the beginning, I thought it was kind of going to be something darker and more horror themed, like Soul Possessions was.
Yeah, yeah. You know, probably the reason that was because my we shot that when my daughter was very young, like
Mm,
within the first year of her life, I believe, um, and or maybe a year or two. So I think probably I leaned a little bit more towards the sentimental because of what I was going through at the time, being the dad to a little girl. I already had a son; he was much older, but with the little girl thing, kind of gave me some different perspective. I think probably.
and Opal White was before Soul Possessions, right? Or was it after?
Uh, no, it was after. It was after because the first one, the short films I did was we did Interstate first,
Yep.
and then Soul Possessions, then Opal White. Yeah, and then after Opal White, we moved on to features and did Chariot, and that
Yep.
went really well. I was actually looking at it earlier today, but um, that had a bunch of problems with the distribution that were
Mm,
really unpleasant to deal with. So
no.
I haven't. gone back. I still write all the time, but I haven't gone back to make another feature film. It was just too much,
Right.
you know.
And do you have any ideas for other shorts that you have planned, maybe, or?
Well, no, not shorts. Right now, I'm actually I have a comedy troupe
Yep.
that I'm with called the Folding Chairs, and we usually like we're sketch comedy, right? And so we've usually done in person, you know, live productions with stage value, you know, costumes, set pieces, and everything.
Right.
But when the pandemic hit, we had to stop performing live. So we were like, we had to pivot. We had to switch to keep our comedy troupe alive. So we just started shooting our sketches as best and as responsibly as we could. So that's been what we're doing. We were actually going to be shooting 3 more sketches this weekend. But unfortunately, we were going to be shooting outside, and now the high is going to be in the 20s. So we had to cancel and move to another weekend. So as far as short form stuff right now goes, I'm spending all of my time with my comedy troupe shooting sketches. You know,
I've actually, I've watched a few of those too on the YouTube channel. And
thanks. I just a couple of days ago updated the YouTube channel with all of our current videos. So you might be able to find a few new ones on there.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of reminds me.
One called Fight that's really good.
Okay. It kind of reminds me of like the first couple seasons of Mad TV, like the kind of humor that you guys go for.
Yeah, thanks. It's it's fun, man. Writing comedy is fun. Performing comedy is really fun. But you know, it's hard because like sometimes you spend all this time writing this sketch or this joke or whatever, and it does not sell, and you got to throw it away, and that's okay. We just want to do what's funny.
And when you started becoming, like, after you got, in terms of voice acting, after you got Trunks, and then you started going outside of other mediums, outside of voice acting, did you ever want to move to LA or New York or anything, or were you always content in staying there?
I didn't want. When I was in college, I went to college in Denton, Texas. I was in the theater department there, and for a while there, the plan was that me and people from my theater department, our plan was to move to New York. Like once we graduated, or some of us even before then, we were going to move to New York, and I forget, there was some drama academy we were going to all attend, room together, and try to make a go of it up north. And then it was a weird thing with my school. Over summer, they gutted the theater department, they fired all the professors, and when we came back, all of our professors were gone. We didn't know anybody who was there. The theater department was virtually castrated. You know, there was nothing that we could do.
Right.
They took all of the theater's money and gave it to the football team. So most people left the theater department, me included. Okay. I changed my major from theater to English, and I kept acting. I had an agent. I was acting in town, and I started doing theatrical productions at a neighboring college instead of the one that I was going to. And so New York died, and then it was, you know, well, who's going to move to LA, right? That's kind of the big thing. And right about the time that I was considering that, I should have been graduating. There was a big rigmarole with my graduation. I got academically suspended because I failed Spanish twice, which you're not allowed to do. And when I got my academic suspension, I got cast on Dragon Ball Z. And so I started working here. And then it was the case of like, I mean, am I going to give up this job that I'm working at constantly to move to Los Angeles to start back over? Or am I just going to stay here and keep trucking? So I just stayed here, and kept working. And luckily, after that, the acting business in Texas really started to pick up, and that was just sort of a fortunate timing thing. So
Right.
I was able to make a living,
Mhm.
you know, which is all I really cared about doing.
Right. Yeah. And so after you got hired as Trunks was, I think that was probably around the same time too that Yu Yu Hakusho started getting dubbed. Was that like your second role, you think?
No, actually, the second thing that I did was Blue Gender,
Okay. Yeah.
and then because we had been doing Dragon Ball Z for a while. I
Mhm.
forget exactly how long, um, and then the studio acquired Blue Gender. It was their first non-Dragon Ball property, and I got cast on that. Worked on that for a while. I guess it was just one season, but it was sometime during that season or afterwards that both Yu Yu Hakusho and Fruits Basket came into the studio, and I started working on both of those. I want to say around the same time, maybe a
Okay.
little bit of difference, but it seemed like it was the same time I was working on those two.
And what were your thoughts stepping into the lead role in Blue Gender? Because that's a really dark, interesting show.
It was nice to play. Like I'd only played Trunks in voiceover up to that point, so it
Right.
was nice to play a character that was a little more reality based, a little less on the fantasy side of things, and so I could, I guess, do a little more of the subtle acting approach. There's not a lot of subtlety in Dragon Ball, so I really relished the opportunity to do that. And Blue Gender was fun too because most of the recording of Blue Gender was done at after hours
Mm.
because the studio we only had two. Well, gosh, maybe just one booth at the time. They added a second and a third booth at that building later, but at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z, or when I started, was this one booth, maybe two, and they were full recording Dragon Ball all week long. So we could only record Blue Gender after hours. So we would go get some dinner and come back and record Blue Gender. And so it was kind of cool. It was kind of in a vacuum where it was just me and the director, Chris Sabat, and he also engineered the sessions. I don't believe there was anybody else in there but us.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I remember when we met via GalaxyCon that you said that you had some production artwork from Blue Gender. Is that the only show that you have stuff from?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Fruits Basket now. Thank you. But yeah, that's it. That's it. I haven't acquired a lot of stuff over the years with regards to anime. I mean, generally speaking, if I get merchandise, it's DVDs,
Yeah.
sometimes other things here and there, but never anything like, the original animation cells or whatever. I know I have I think I've got a Blue Gender cell here somewhere.
Okay.
Uh, Pretty sure I do, but I'm not sure where it is.
Hmm. And then in regards to Fruits Basket, do you think that you're most like Yuki in terms of everybody you've played, or is it like a mix of in terms of like characters that you can personally relate to?
You broke up there at the beginning. What was the beginning of the question?
Oh, I was just asking if, in terms of all the characters you've played, if Yuki is the most relatable to you.
Absolutely not. No, I don't
Oh,
understand that guy at all.
okay.
I just my job is to make him as real as possible. So that's a lot of research and a lot of acting. But in no way is that character like me.
Okay.
Of all the characters I've played, the character that is most like me is America in Italia.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
that character is um, frighteningly close to my personality.
Yeah. Do you share anything with Nishiki and Tokyo Ghoul, or like Ferret and Hawari no Seraph?
Do I share anything personality wise with the character?
Yeah.
No. I mean, my personality is it's kind of okay. So it's, you know, The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
So it's equal parts The Big Lebowski and Rage, I guess. I don't know. Hell, I'm even wearing the Big Lebowski sweater today.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, no, I don't share a lot in common with a lot of the characters I play in anime. There's just a handful. Like I've got some desert punk in me. You know, I've definitely got some of that loudmouth obnoxiousness going on, and America's kind of bold outspokenness. I have that going on. But I'm not, like with regards to Ferret, I'm not a cunning person. I don't hide facets of me. Like I'm a what you see is what you get person. I pour it all out in front of me all the time, and you either like it or you don't.
Right.
You know.
And is your favorite voice role still Desert Punk?
Probably. It was just so much fun to do. I worked with great directors and engineers on that show. I was also the head writer on it. And really the cool thing about Desert Punk was I got to be in a booth with my buddies for long periods of time and ad lib and come up with jokes that were funnier than the ones that I had written. So performance wise, I'm not sure, but I can tell you from the work side, it was the most fun.
Yeah. Based off the outtakes for Ace Attorney too. Like those are hilarious.
Yeah, Ace Attorney was great. The outtakes were easily the most fun part of the entire thing. I actually, a young woman animated one of the outtakes and threw it up on Twitter the other day.
Oh, that's cool.
And I saw it, somebody tagged me in it, and I saw it, and I cracked up. And so I talked with her yesterday. Actually, got on the phone with her, and I just wanted to tell her, you know, thanks. And I thought she did a great job, and that her animation was really top notch.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
yeah, Ace Attorney was a lot of fun too. It was a good show.
So do you have this might be obvious, but do you have a preference between more comedic roles opposed to when you've played like villainous characters?
We're not really a preference. I mean, I like comedy is always fun, but so is being the bad guy. I don't get to be the bad guy as often as I get to do comedic stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, I might say being the bad guy is more fun right now because it takes less out of my day. So I get to pour myself into a little bit more than the comedy, because the comedy is kind of like this afternoon I'll be writing comedy, and I got a lot of comedy writing that I've got to do for my troupe, a lot of work that needs to be done. And we have rehearsals once a week. So I'm always doing the comedy stuff. I'm just not always doing the bad guy stuff. And
right.
Playing the bad guy is a lot of fun. You get a lot of clout for being the bad guy. Like the cool thing about being a bad guy is you don't have as much work to put in as the hero, but boy, people really like you for it. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool.
And when you were you told to base your when you auditioned for Shigaraki, or when you got the role of Shigaraki, like were you told to base that off of the Japanese?
No. In fact, I don't. I know that I auditioned for that show. I'm positive I did not audition for that character in that voice.
Okay.
So I was brought into the studio. I wasn't told to match the Japanese voice. In fact, I believe the director told me to just, I may be misremembering this, but it's my memory that she kind of told me to wing it and just come up with what I thought was an evil sounding voice for the character that I was seeing. And then we really, I think we played around with the voice for about a minute before we figured out how he sounded. It wasn't much. Like I don't even remember what voice it was. I did voice for him, and the director came back, I think, with like one note, and I took the note, and that was the voice that we've used ever since.
Okay. Yeah, because I think in a lot of your roles that you do a good job of sounding similar to the Japanese voice actor, like especially with Trunks.
Actually, I would say that that's not my job. Like, that's the director's job. The director
Right.
is the director who makes sure that those two things match up. My job's just to listen to them and make sure that I get it done right.
Hmm. And I'm not sure how many other instances this has happened, but like with the original dub of Fruits Basket, um, since Yuki was originally voiced by a woman, like how many other times, however many other times that's happened, like is your approach to that any different to creating the
No,
voice?
no, no. My approach to the character is the same. Well, I would say it's both the same and completely different every single time.
Hmm.
Every single character is different, so I'm going to approach every character differently based on the needs of the show, based on how the character services the show. So everything is different, but it's still the same insofar as as an actor, it's my job to listen and make sure that I'm facilitating the vision of my number one, which is the director. So as long as I'm doing what the director wants, I'm good.
Mm-hmm. And I like to in the remake of the Fruits Basket series that there was a recent scene where like Yuki breaks down and cries and everything.
Mm.
Was that difficult for you to record?
No, I mean, everything is difficult to record right now because like you are literally looking at where I record everything right now and where I have recorded everything since April.
Okay.
Right here, this room, either sitting right here at the desk where I've got my little microphone here,
Mm.
or standing in that corner where the sound panels are.
Okay.
I have a mic stand over there. So that's hard. You
Yeah.
know, the actual performance of it is thankfully I mean challenging, sure, but like I said, I do my research, I do my work,
Mm.
and most importantly, listen to the director. And so she coached me through how emotional that was going to be for him. And yeah, it wasn't emotionally taxing on me, I would say.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah. Well, because that's not something I've noticed with a lot of characters that you play. Like, there's not very many instances where you get to, emote that much.
No. No, there's not. No, most of my characters are, I got bad guys who are just evil, or good guys who are, just good, or I play, as everyone has noticed, the most characters that I play are the lovable jerks.
Yep.
And those guys usually don't have hugely emotional scenes. But, as an actor, I've played those kinds of scenes in many other incarnations on stage and what have you.
Mm-hmm. And this is something I wanted to ask about because I hadn't really seen anybody bring it up. But I know it was a little brief role, but in Bacano, you got to do a cool accent. And is that also something that's just really easy for you to slip into?
French, I mean, look, all of the accents require work,
Yeah.
French is the only dialect that I was technically trained to do. I was in a play back in college where I had to play a French guy, and so I had a dialect coach, come in and explain how to make all of my English words sound like they were French.
Mm.
So I did that, which means it's not hard to do, but it requires a little bit of effort. Some dialects require more effort than others. Australian's not too difficult for me because I have Australian family,
Mm.
so I just think about what my aunt sounds like, and that's not so bad. So everything's got its own little challenges.
Hmm. What about in terms of, the single most difficult voice role you've had? Would it be Trunks?
No,
No.
no, the single most difficult voice role in anime is the tournament announcer,
Oh, okay.
because he's uh and a close second to the tournament announcer is Sanji in One Piece.
Oh, really?
But the problem with the tournament announcer is that everything he says requires all of the air in my lungs. So that's sort of something, at least from my perspective, that people misunderstand about voiceover. They think that the stranger a voice sounds, the harder it is, and that's not true.
Hmm.
The thing that makes a vocal performance difficult is the amount of air you have to push out of your lungs to get the voice done.
Yes.
So, like screaming in Dragon Ball, that's easy because it doesn't really require a lot of air to vibrate this stuff intensely and make it sound like it's a big scream. You just push the air in a like a single line tube out and you're fine. But having to say those character lines at high intensity, that everything the tournament announcer says is up here all the time. He never calms down, especially in the video games. Video games are even harder, but it just requires so much air. And Sanji is the same way. He just requires so much air pushing out, and that's what makes them more exhausting than, say, a Shigaraki. Shigaraki sounds like a creepy, crazy, difficult voice, but it requires almost no air to do it, so it's not very difficult to do.
Right.
What
about with the Plunderer? Because that seemed like it was pretty close to your normal speaking voice.
Yeah. Plunderer was, there's a few roles I've played that are pretty much my normal speaking voice. Plunderer is one of them. Loki and Fairy Tail is another one. That's clearly not that difficult. It's just how I talk.
Mm-hmm. What about with Fire Force?
Fire Force requires a little bit of effort. I do put on a little character voice with him, but he's not too bad. The thing about Arthur in Fire Force is there's not he's a very present character in the show, but as an actor, I don't have as many lines or as much line time as a lot of the other actors in the show, so it doesn't require a tremendous amount of effort on my part to pull it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there it might be kind of hard to say with anime, but is there like a specific kind of role that you hope that you can still play at some point?
No, I don't put that on myself.
Okay.
I've learned a long time ago that as an actor, if you want to stay sane, you have to stay in the moment. So, like today, I've got a few auditions that I have to record here for some commercials and a new show and all this stuff. So, I'll sit down and I'll do those auditions, and then I'll send them out and I'll forget about them until hopefully somebody calls me and casts me on something. And that's just kind of my philosophy with all this. And I don't want to sit back and think, I don't want to spend my energy worrying about getting a certain type of role. I'm just fortunate that I keep working and happy that people keep casting me. So I stay focused in the moment, do the job, do the audition, do the work, and just be happy that I've been, blessed with some really kick-ass iconic roles.
Right. Yeah. And is there anything like upcoming that you can talk about that you're in, or?
I really never know how to answer that question. I've answered that question appropriately before and then was told later that I didn't answer it right because so much changes so often. So I kind of have a philosophy of never answering that question because I don't want to get in trouble, because I don't know what I'm under NDA for or not. I can tell you of all the things. I can tell you actually with anime, I'm not doing anything new right now.
Okay.
All the things that all the things that I'm on, I'm paused on recording. Like I'm not recording. I mean, I'm still cast on, but we're not recording Fruits
Okay.
Basket or DBZ or
Right.
I mean, or I'm not even in Super. And let's see, we finished Plunderer, and so I'm kind of at an in-between point with the anime right now, which is fine. You know, I'm still I audition for stuff, and I have other roles, and you know, that's the thing with anime is you never know when you're going to get a second season or a third season of something, and I don't pay attention, man. Well, I just do my stuff, and then somebody calls me up, and they're like, "Hey, it's you've got the 5th season of so and so coming up. Let's go ahead and get you recorded on that." I'm like, all right, I guess let's just go. So yeah, nothing really that I know of, and honestly, I really don't know of anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also like to ask voice actors, like, how long did it take for you to become a fan of anime outside of when you began, voicing?
Well, I mean, I grew up watching anime. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't. I mean, when I was in preschool, when I was 3, 4 years old, I was watching anime. They at the time in the 70s, it was the mid to late 70s. I every day in preschool they'd put us in front of this big old wooden television set with a turn dial knob, and we would watch Star Blazers and Battle of the Planets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Loved it. And then when I got a little bit older, when I was in 6th grade, about 1986 was kind of the heyday of Robotech. So I
Right.
watched Robotech before and after school every day. And, I would go down to the anime store at the mall on the other side of town and stand in line on Saturday mornings so I could get the new toys that were coming in from Robotech. Everybody wanted the Invid toys, and
Mm-hmm.
you had to stand in line for that stuff, man. So, I was a fan of this stuff back then. And then in college even, man, where I would go, we'd drive out to this dude who lived on the outside of town and had just a stack of these bootleg anime that you'd never heard of,
Right.
even still haven't heard of. And we would sit down. They didn't have subtitles, nothing. It was just in Japanese. And we would just watch this stuff all night long.
Okay.
And so that was in college. And then later on in college, same sort of thing, we'd watch. I remember I dated a girl in the year before I got cast on DBZ. This girl was a big anime fan, and I'd been out of it for a while, so she kind of dragged me into rewatching this stuff. And so yeah, it's almost like it's always been a part of me.
Yeah, that's cool. And were you also kind of aware of ADV being around? Because they were before Funimation.
No,
No.
I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know Funimation was around, man.
Yeah.
When I was brought into audition on Dragon Ball Z, I knew what Dragon Ball Z was. I had to, I kind of, sorry. No, don't. Sorry.
It's okay.
Don't bark. Don't bark. Come here. That's just somebody walking by the front of the house. Come here, Frida. So, anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I've always had anime. Hey, girl, come here. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, here. I always have to go see who's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's nobody. That was
Right.
literally the sound of somebody just walking down the street in front of the house. So anyway, all right, where were we?
Oh, the next thing I was going to ask you was, are you very close with very many LA voice actors?
I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
You know, like I have, you know, it's a small community. I'll say
Right.
that.
Hmm.
So generally speaking, we all kind of know each other, and when conventions are happening, and they will happen soon again, um, those are the only places that we really meet and hang out. So some people I've met and really get along with, other people I've met and don't get along with or don't know. I mean, it's pretty normal, you know, just kind of the same sort of thing that anyone goes through in life, you know. It's like some people I'm close friends with and some people not. It's harder to be close with people in Los Angeles, being in Dallas. So
Right.
you know, because you hang out with who you hang out with. But like, you know, I've got my voice actor friends here in town who we get together for, you know, at least right now, online cocktails and stuff like that.
Hmm. Well, because I've seen videos at conventions with you and Kari Walgren, and you guys seem like you have a really nice camaraderie together.
She's wonderful. Yeah, that was the only time I've ever really hung around with her, was at that one
Well,
convention. We had a great weekend.
yeah.
We had Kari and I had a really interesting time meeting some very interesting people that, like, there's one time I didn't know who she was. I mean, I knew her work, of course,
Right.
but we were sitting in the lobby of this hotel waiting to get picked up to go to the convention. And some dude comes over and sits down between us and just starts, he's some stand-up comedian, I don't even remember who he was, but he starts firing off the weirdest, most sexist,
Oh,
racist stuff out of his mouth. And Kari and I are like, what?
yikes.
And Kari just sits there just like, oh no, please. Like, I'm like, she's like a passive observer, like doesn't want to be a part of it. And I keep egging the guy on. I'm like, oh, these are great jokes, man. Please tell us some more. I love hearing this. And then we had a laugh about that later. And she's a really sweet person.
I guess going off of that, I can ask you too, can you pick like a single craziest like fan experience or anything like that that's happened to you?
I cannot pick one. I mean, I've had you know, if you almost, it's been such a long career at this point, if you can name a fan experience, I've probably had it. You know, I've had people be weird with me. I've had people be uncomfortably close to me. I've had people, I've had, you know, death threats.
Right. Yeah.
I've had, you know, everything from love to hate. Probably the one that I have talked about the most is in Australia. One time, this young woman was, she was first in line at my autograph signing 2 days in a row. And the first day, she hands me a letter while she's crying, and I signed something for her, and she ran away. And the next day, she shows up again, first in line, hands me another letter. But that day I showed up with my wife, and my wife is walking across the convention floor away from me.
Yeah.
And this young woman asked if that was my wife. The guy she asked said yes. And this young woman ran after my wife like she was gonna like punch her or tackle her or something. So security jumped on that girl. And apparently she just wanted to ask my wife what it was like being married to me, which it wasn't what it was like being married to me. She asked what it was like being married to Trunks.
Oh.
And my wife is like, I'm married to Eric. He's an actor. And the girl didn't get it. Like there was some disconnect up here between the reality and the fantasy. So
Dang.
you know, that was weird.
Right.
You know, but I've had a lot of experiences like that.
Did you start going to conventions pretty early on too?
Yeah, I did. My first convention was in California when I was I was only playing Trunks like for 6 months. And then they said, hey, we want to fly you out to this convention in Los Angeles, in Anaheim. I was like, all right. So I went out there and did the convention. It was weird because I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I'm a fan myself of the things that I dig. And so I have been to plenty of conventions, but the conventions that I went to were comic book, like real actual comic book conventions. And, you know, stand in line to get autographs from the authors that you love and all that kind of stuff. So I've done it, you know, I'd done that kind of thing plenty of times. And so they're like, we're going to fly out to Anaheim and you're going to go to an anime expo and you're going to sign autographs. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, man. So I did that and was not remotely prepared for the toll it takes. It's an absolutely exhausting thing to sign autographs for 8 hours.
Right.
You can't know until you do it how exhausting it is. And the problem with it is that you want to put on a face, you want to put on the good front, and that burns a lot of energy. Yeah, so I mean, once and you want to do that because if you do something untoward or you say something wrong or you misspeak or maybe you're just a jerk, boy, that stuff hits the internet fast, you know. So you want to put your best foot forward as much as you can.
It seems like you're a pretty, based off a lot of the videos I've seen, it seems like you're a pretty patient person when it comes to being asked to do like certain lines and whatever too for fans and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty patient person when it comes to that kind of thing. And like I said, because I've been there. I had especially with conventions, I had one of my idols show me a lot of kindness one time at a con. If you know who Clive Barker is.
Oh yeah.
In fact, you see that painting right there
That's
is
cool.
signed by him. I had bought that. I went to a convention. I was 19 years old, and I went to a comic book convention where he was at, and I took my books and went over and bought that artwork. And when I was buying that piece of art, that print, he walked up behind me and asked me if I saw anything that I liked and if he could answer any questions. You know, it's like there's my idol there a foot away from me, and I kind of froze and just sort of, I was like, no, I'm good. And then I just walked away. Then I stood in line and I was number 97 in line. And by the time I got to the front, they kept telling everyone, mark the pages in the books you want signed.
Okay.
So I got to the front of the line and Clive Barker's like, oh, hi, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you earlier. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I was just nervous. And he was like, that's okay. It's okay to be nervous. I understand. And let me see your stuff I can sign. And I handed him the stack of books. There's 3 of them. And he opened them up and he's like, you actually marked the pages you wanted signed. I'm like, yeah, I did, because you said to do that. And he goes, you're number 97 in line and literally not one person before you has done this.
Oh.
I was like, oh, okay. So then he said, hey, why don't you stick around? Have a seat next to me. We can chat. So he invited me to sit down with him and we chatted for a little while about his stories, and I got to sit behind his autograph table while we talked, and he signed autographs for other people. And I'll never forget that. And that one moment, it meant so much to me to be treated like that I try to give that to people as best I can while I'm out on the road too.
That's a really cool story, because I'm into like that. In terms of horror, I'm into that period the most too, like all throughout the 80s and early 90s. And yeah, I've had, because outside of voice actors, I'm really into like actors from that period. Like I've met Linda Blair and like other actors from that time frame. And I was going to ask you, do you think that, since Soul Possessions is kind of like a psychological horror, is that like your favorite subgenre of horror, you think?
I don't know. I am a huge horror fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could tell you what my favorite horror subgenre is. You know, I like a lot of them. I kind of, I don't know. My favorite filmmaker is John Carpenter.
Okay, yeah.
Um, I like I like his films. I like those kinds of films. I like the way that he shoots things. Um, but I tend to like as far as horror goes, I tend to love the self-contained horror stories, something that takes place in a smaller location, like the Evil Dead
Okay, yeah.
movies, like they're all at the cabin in the woods.
Yep.
I like that kind of contained. It feels like you can contain the suspense better.
Hmm.
Um, Recently, this movie was released called VFW.
Yep.
I loved that. Loved that. And it reminded me of all those 80s horror movies that I have such affinity for.
Hmm. Is
So
there
maybe
any is there anything that that scares you too?
like in real life.
Well, in terms of like if there's any movies or books or whatever that have scared you significantly.
You know, I, the things that scare me the most are the things that are just slightly off center.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not scared by zombies or vampires or
Right.
monsters, you
Yeah.
know? Um, I'm scared of the things that hit close to home and the things, like I said, are just off enough to make it uncomfortable. Um, my wife and I rewatched American Werewolf in London last week,
Oh, yeah.
which is one of the best horror movies and weirdly also hilariously funny.
Right.
But that movie checks off a couple of those boxes because there's nothing weird about being a traveler in a foreign country. You know, there's nothing weird about going backpacking. There's nothing weird about walking into a pub where you feel like an outsider. You know, that's all normal, you
Hmm.
know, but there is something weird about being attacked by a werewolf that same night, you
Yeah.
know, and again, those like everything just kind of feels a little bit shifted off center the whole time. So I'm a big fan of that uncomfortable feeling, that impending dread that you know something really bad is coming. That always intrigues me in horror films.
Right. Yeah. I just think that I think too that the more realistic is scarier than anything else, really.
Yeah, yeah, that Exorcist kind of stuff, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah. We were talking about The Exorcist just last night. I played the song "Tubular Bells" for my wife, and she couldn't
No.
guess what it was from. And I was like, "How do you not know that?"
So I guess I can. One of the last things I can ask is just, what do you have you ever thought about what you want your legacy to be?
I mean, my truth be told, man, my legacy is my kids. You know, as long
Mhm.
as they go forward and live good lives and treat people well, then I've done my part in my life as dad. Um, but as far as my career goes, legacy in my career is that I mean, I hope that I've given people as much joy as other artists have given me. I mean, as many times as I sat down to watch a John Carpenter movie, I've never met the guy,
Mhm.
but he he's given me so much entertainment over the years, and um, so many times where I could use his art to relax or decompress or learn or just have fun. And if I can give that back to people in any way, that'll be a good thing to leave behind.
Mhm. Yeah, because I can mention again too that I think I was probably in like fifth grade when I discovered Fruits Basket, and it's crazy how even today, like the original series and the remake, it's so full of real life things that everyone goes through, and it's a really good series well, for me at that time, like, since you don't have I didn't have anybody to tell my problems to, then you can just have that kind of be a cathartic release and um, help to get through things.
Yeah, yeah, and I hear that a lot when I'm at conventions, when I get to meet people face to face. Is a lot of people say that the work that, not just me, but the work that we all have done in these programs these people love so much have helped them get through hard times. And man, I know that it's the same sort of thing that's happened for me. You know, I'm an unabashed, I'm an unashamed fan of the show Friends. I know what it is, and I will watch it every single day, all the time. And my wife hates it, and but like that's comfort food to me. That brings me joy. If I'm having a hard time, I know I can put that show on in the background, and it just sort of eases me a little bit. And I've heard that the shows that we work on do that for other people, so that makes me happy.
Yeah, yeah, and outside of anime, like the normal show that I always like to put on for that kind of thing is Married with Children.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a great show. It's
Yeah.
a great one. Yeah, no, that's everybody's got their comfort food, man.
Oh, and I didn't mention. I forgot to bring this up until now, but I thought it was really cool that you were Sanosuke in the live action Kenshin movies.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They let me reprise him in that. That was weird, you know, but it was fun. I liked it.
Was that a lot harder than anime, or was that kind of similar?
No, it's kind of similar. It's not near as difficult as anime. No voice, anything is as hard as anime is for me.
Mm.
You know, anime requires so much attention to get your lines right, and these other things don't as much. So
You did mention earlier too that you've done some other like commercial stuff, like voice
oh
work.
yeah. Oh, voice work? Yeah, I do a ton. Like I voiced a lot of the stuff for Dave and Buster's for years until the pandemic
Oh,
shut that down.
that's cool.
So I was doing all their radio and TV spots for a long time. That was great. Good company to work for, a lot of fun, and a lot of cool spots we got to record. Right now, I do a lot of work for Fox Sports Southwest and the Dallas Stars hockey team, and then other, just other commercials, whatever pops up. You know, some industrial stuff, some internal video stuff. I just did it was more of a favor for a friend of mine, but I just did a voiceover for a video for a school district that's outside of Dallas. You know, it's just got to do what you can to pay the bills, man.
Right. And have you really ever gotten the chance to work in any original animation type stuff?
No, I mean, no, I nothing like you know of in like what they record in other places.
Right.
You know, so no, and because a lot of that requires you to be where they are. I mean, it's
Right.
different now, but I just don't have those ends, and my career's, it moves in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some other people do that thing, and that's what they rock on with. But I mean, like, I'm not. I used to really, really not like Los Angeles. I've come around to liking it more, but it's too, like, to live there would be too much for me. It's
Okay.
I've got family here in Dallas, my parents, my wife's mother. So, I haven't done a whole lot of that. It would require me to move, and I'm not going to move. I also, like, I have a nice house in Dallas, and if I moved out to Los Angeles, I could barely afford a 1-bedroom apartment. So
Right.
I'll stay at my house here, even if it gets cold.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for willing to do this. I'm glad that we finally got to talk.
Yeah, me too, man. I was sorry for the delay, but it's just been one hell of a year.
Right. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, you've only been to Daisho Con up here, haven't you?
I was at Daisho Con, yeah. But it's not in Minneapolis, is it?
No, it's in the Wisconsin Dells.
That's it. Yeah, at the resort, the Kalahari Resort, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there. Oh yeah, I was there once recently.
Yep.
With some friends. We had a good time. Yeah, it was cold then too.
Yep. Well,
We
hopefully
went to the
you'll,
casino and ate steak.
yeah. Well, hopefully you'll come up here, like, because I know there's a main convention here in Minneapolis called Anime Detour.
Yeah, I've tried to get I've tried to get up to Anime Detour a few times. It's just not worked out. But yeah, I would totally be down for that. I'd love
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
You know, hell, I'd love to just go back to conventions.
Right. Well,
But
thanks
yeah,
all.
that'll be great. Even if it's the Wisconsin Dells one. Oh, there we go. But yeah, you tell the conventions that you want me to go, and I'll make sure my agent hears it, and hopefully see you next year.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks. I'll see you later.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. Good interview, man.